Some people look ordinary until life pushes them. Then suddenly, you realize they're carrying a level of strength that can flip any situation in seconds. They don't brag, they don't shout, they don't show off. But deep inside them is a power most people never notice until it's too late. These are the people you should never underestimate, because their silence hides storms. Normal questions which comes to everyone's mind. Why do quiet people become the most dangerous when pushed? And what makes emotionally controlled people impossible to manipulate? Also, why do people with strong boundaries threaten toxic individuals? And what hidden strength do people with painful pasts carry? And why do silent observers always stay 5 steps ahead? Also, what makes self-respecting individuals unshakable? And why are people who don't seek validation the hardest to defeat? Let's begin. Question 1. Why do quiet people become the most dangerous when pushed? Quiet people confuse others. They seem calm, gentle, and easygoing, so most people assume they are harmless. But silence is not weakness. Silence is focus. Quiet individuals notice everything. They analyze people, patterns, reactions, and intentions. While loud people broadcast their thoughts, quiet people gather information. They see things long before they speak. So when someone pushes them too far, their reaction isn't emotional. It's calculated. They don't fight out of anger. They respond out of clarity. And that clarity makes them powerful. Quiet people also have high emotional thresholds. They tolerate more than they should. But once they reach their breaking point, they no longer care about opinions, consequences, or approval. They simply act, and their actions carry precision. Most importantly, quiet people have practiced self-control for so long that when they finally unleash it, it shocks everyone around them. You might be wondering, why do they stay silent for so long? Because peace matters more to them than ego. They don't like conflict, but they won't run from it either. And maybe you've also thought, if quiet people are this powerful, what about people who control their emotions? That takes us directly into question 2. And trust me, it gets even deeper. Question 2. What makes emotionally controlled people impossible to manipulate? Emotionally controlled people are dangerous in the best possible way. They don't break under pressure. They don't explode when provoked. They don't lose themselves in emotional chaos. This calmness makes them unshakable. And manipulation depends entirely on shaking someone emotionally. When someone tries to guilt trip them, they don't fall for it. When someone tries to provoke them, they don't react. When someone tries to play mind games, they see the pattern instantly. Their emotional discipline gives them a psychological shield. Most people can't penetrate. People who control their emotions don't run from uncomfortable truths. They face them. They don't need validation from others, so external pressure means nothing. They've trained themselves to separate what they feel from what they do. And that makes them incredibly hard to influence. You might be thinking, how can someone stay this calm all the time? Because they've experienced enough emotional storms to learn that reacting instantly only makes things worse. And maybe you've wondered, if emotional control is this strong, how powerful must people be who have firm boundaries? That leads us directly to question 3, and it's a complete game changer. Question 3. Why do people with strong boundaries threaten toxic individuals? People with strong boundaries carry a kind of authority that toxic people hate. Boundaries block manipulation, And without manipulation, toxic personalities lose power. Someone with boundaries says, "No, you can't talk to me like that." "No, I won't tolerate disrespect." "No, I'm not responsible for your emotions." These lines destroy every psychological trick toxic people rely on. Boundary setters know exactly what they deserve, so they don't accept less. They don't chase people. They don't keep explaining themselves. They don't compromise their peace just to maintain a connection. This terrifies manipulators because boundaries expose them. When a person refuses to be controlled, toxic individuals lose their advantage completely. You might be thinking, does having boundaries make you difficult? Not at all. It makes you clear. Clarity threatens toxic people because confusion is where they thrive. And maybe another thought crossed your mind. If boundaries are powerful, what about people who have been shaped by pain? That question takes us to the next trait, and it's deeper than you think. Question 4. What hidden strength do people with painful pasts carry? People who have survived pain carry a strength that can't be taught. It's earned. Pain changes the way a person sees the world. It removes illusions, sharpens instincts, and builds emotional endurance. Someone who has suffered learns to recognize danger early. They can sense dishonesty, feel hidden intentions, and read emotional currents better than those who've lived comfortably. Pain builds self-awareness. It teaches patience. It creates inner steel. People with painful pasts don't panic quickly. They don't collapse easily. They've already been to the edge. They know how to return stronger. You might be thinking, does pain make people emotionally cold? Not always. Most of the time, it makes them emotionally intelligent. They don't fall for fake affection, fake promises, or fake intentions because they've experienced the consequences before. And maybe you also wondered, if pain creates this much clarity, what about the people who stay silent and observe everything? That leads straight into Question 5. Question 5. Why do silent observers always stay 5 steps ahead? Silent observers are the most underestimated people in any room. They speak less because they are busy watching. They notice expressions, tone shifts, micro-reactions, patterns, and inconsistencies. While others rush to talk, observers collect information. They see the truth behind people's actions. They notice intentions that even the person themselves isn't aware of. This makes them extremely hard to deceive. Silent observers don't react fast. They react right. They plan, calculate, and move only when necessary. And when they make a move, it is always impactful. You might be wondering, do observers judge too much? No, they simply understand deeply. And maybe you also thought, if observers are this powerful, how strong must someone be when they have deep self-respect? Let's move to Question 6. Question 6. What makes a person with self-respect unshakable? A person with self-respect is built differently. They don't tolerate disrespect. They don't lose themselves in relationships. And they don't allow emotional chaos to dictate their decisions. Self-respect creates confidence without arrogance. It builds calmness without coldness. It gives a person the ability to walk away from anything that lowers their standards. Self-respecting individuals don't argue unnecessarily, don't beg for attention, and don't fight for people who won't fight for them. They protect their peace like it's sacred. You might be thinking, does self-respect mean someone has ego? No. Ego says, I'm better than you. Self-respect says, I deserve better. Two very different energies. And maybe you've also wondered, if self-respect is this powerful, What about the people who don't need validation in the first place? That brings us to the final question. Question 7. Why are people who don't seek validation the hardest to defeat? When a person doesn't crave validation, they become unstoppable. People who don't look for approval can't be controlled by opinions. They don't change themselves to be liked, accepted, or praised. You can't embarrass someone who isn't afraid of judgment. You can't manipulate someone who doesn't need your approval. You can't defeat someone who defines their worth internally. Validation-free individuals think independently. They act boldly. They take risks others avoid. They move without asking permission or waiting for reassurance. You might be wondering, does not seeking validation make a person arrogant? No, it makes them authentic. And maybe you also thought, now I understand why these 7 traits are impossible to underestimate. Exactly, if this video opened your eyes, remember this. True strength isn't loud. It's quiet, controlled, and deeply rooted. The people you underestimate today might be the ones who surprise you the most tomorrow. If you want more powerful dark psychology breakdowns, more human behavior insights, and more high-level mindset lessons, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring deeper and stronger content every single week. Stay aware, stay sharp, and never underestimate the quiet ones.